The American population is made of people who have traveled near and far to visit the United States. I'm here in Del Mar, California with Ingrid Hoffmeister. Hello Ingrid, and welcome to Adventures Abroad.
Thank you, Geoff. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to travelling back to London through your footage.
Great. Well, I appreciate you being able to narrate all this footage because I was a foreigner when I was there and you're a bit more of a local, or you are a local, so that should be great.
Thank you again. Well, I suppose you got to London by flying out of LAX and 12 hours later landing in Heathrow International.
That would be correct, Ingrid.
Did you know that when you land in London, that London is located on the prime meridian of the world? It's easy to figure out the latitude because the planet has a set equator. However, in order to run longitudinal lines east and west, the world had to agree on a starting point at 0 degrees. And since the British naval fleet was so globally dominant at the time, London was agreed upon to be that site, that 0 degrees, that was decided upon by the rest of the world in 1884. London, England is a city booming with life and culture. It has 8 million inhabitants condensed into only 610 square miles. For this reason, citizens of London often travel by a complex yet efficient public transport system that we call the Tube, often known as the Underground or Subway. Here one finds interesting advertisements, music, and people from all cultures in the crowded underground trains. Furthermore, London has also been developing for at least 2,000 years, long before the Roman invasion. During the course of Adventures Abroad, you will be taken through many of the famous historical locations of this land. We will start with the famous Big Ben, a 320-foot tower clock. What people don't realise is that Big Ben is actually the name of the bell inside of the clock. The name is derived from Sir Benjamin Hall, who was the commissioner when the clock was installed in 1558. Big Ben is a part of London's Houses of Parliament, or more properly referred to as the Palace of Westminster. This is where the legal matters are all performed. The Houses of Parliament have been around since the 11th century, but it was not formally established until 1547. Close by are many other historical and famous landmarks. Westminster Abbey is a fine example of English Gothic architecture. It was founded by Edward the Confessor in 1065, one of the patron saints of London. And legend would have it that he was able to perform miracles and give sight to the blind. People from all over the Western world made pilgrimages just to see him. Edward the Confessor is the first to have been buried there, and to this day one can see his tomb among the tombs of many other famous British citizens. Among the tombs one can find names like Queen Elizabeth I, Mary Queen of Scots, Sir Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, Charles Dickens, King Henry VIII and Edward I and III. Also, all of the monarchs for the past 600 years have been crowned in Westminster Abbey. Also in the area is the London Eye, which is the largest Ferris wheel in the world at 405 feet from top to bottom. It offers fantastic 360-degree panoramic views, making it a perfect observatory. It moves at only 0.26 miles per hour and takes 30 minutes to make one revolution. Created in the year 2000 by British Airways, it took them 6 years to build and 100 people from 5 European countries to do it.
Look out below!
Now here's the British Telecom Tower, and it's also the Post Office Tower. This building definitely stands out. When it was first completed in the 60s, it was one of the tallest buildings in London at 620 feet. It Its purpose is to allow telecommunications or broadcast telephone and internet to send uninterrupted signals to all of the other areas in the city. All the places discussed so far have been close to the River Thames. This important river not only runs through London, but spans for 215 miles all across England. Poet John Burns describes the River Thames as liquid history because this river dates back to the origin of the nation's capital in 43 AD. Today, crossing the River Thames by boat yields interesting sights. This dome-shaped building is the office of the Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone. This building cost English taxpayers £40 million. This geometrical wonder only took 14 weeks to construct. It's the Hong Kong-Shanghai Bank. Bridges have been built to cross the River Thames since 80 AD. Perhaps this long tradition is why the British have a nursery rhyme called London Bridge is Falling Down. This one is called the Millennium Bridge. More recognisable, we have Tower Bridge, which has stood over the River Thames since 1894. This is one of the finest and most recognisable bridges in the world. Along the River Thames there are also fantastic theatres, like this one. Sometimes there is live music right outside of the theatre, so you can enjoy yourself without spending a penny. Other times, even spectators can become the main attraction, especially this character who's clearly enjoying himself, don't you think? Speaking of characters, London has a lot of those, and some of them are frozen like statues. But Geoff has captured some rare moments where we can see them animated. Whether they're wearing glittery silver, pink or black and wearing masks. Everything is interesting when you're in London. Now, if London becomes a little bit too much and you want to escape into nature, we have our wonderful parks. Regent's Park, shown here, was designed by renowned architect John Nash and first opened to the public in 1838. The park was named after Prince Regent, or as he is better known, King George IV. So, Geoff, you mean you actually visited all these places that our viewers have been looking at today?
That's right, and more. The show's not done yet.
Well, you know what? Did you have a chance to go to Hyde Park? Because Hyde Park is one of those places where on a Sunday they have a speaker's corner. That means anybody can go to Hyde Park and you can stand on a box, stand up and say anything about politics or music, anything you want to talk about, and have just a very fiery discourse. Did you go?
I actually didn't get a chance. You know, I love public discourse. I love being able to argue my point and things like that, but I just couldn't fit it into my schedule when I was there. I went to Regent's Park, as you saw there, but never made it out to Hyde Park. But I did go to Portobello Road.
Wow, Portobello Road. I didn't think you liked shopping.
I actually don't like shopping. I detest it. But you know what? I really loved this movie when I was a little kid by Disney. It's called Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
I know that.
Yes, so there's this one song in it. It goes, Portobello Road. And so I actually kind of took my music and I made a recomposition of it. And so this is what we're about to watch right here.
Ouch, I hope that's good.
Well, we'll see.
Portobello Road, street where the riches of ages are stowed. Anything and everything a chap can unload is sold off the barrow in Portobello Road. You'll find what you want in the Portobello Road. Rare alabaster, genuine plaster, everything British to crave your desire. A pen used by Sherry, a beer brewed with cherry, the slipper that clipped old King Edward's cigar. Himalayan crystals, Napoleon's pistols, Society Adams with genuine gems, Rembrandt's El Grecos, Toulouse and the Tagos, printed last week on the bank of the Thames. You'll find what you want in the Portobello Road. Now I know that rendition of Portobello Road wasn't as good as the original, but I had to do it.
This is Covent Garden and a very strange catwalk. Only here could you find a bar called the Nag's Head. If you're a person who likes to shop at the high-end department stores, then you need to go to Harrods in Knightsbridge. It's currently a 7-storey building with 300 departments and is illuminated at night by 11,500 light bulbs. It's the name of Charles Henry Harrod, who opened what used to be a family grocery store in 1849. It has since become a very prestigious department store with the motto Omnia Omnibus Ubique, which means all things for all people everywhere. This image was brought into effect when an Egyptian businessman named Mohammed Al-Fayed took over the store in 1985. This is Princess Di and Mohammed's son Dodi Al-Fayed. The two of them had a love affair and were supposed to get married until they were both victim to a mysterious yet fatal car crash. I say mysterious because it has been rumoured that the car accident was not purely an accident, but involved secret agencies wanting to assassinate them. Anyhow, on a lighter side, here's Harrods. And if you visit with an appetite, don't forget to visit the food court and the yummy candies.
My personal favorite thing about Harrods is the Egyptian escalator.
Featuring images of Luxor Temple, Queen Nefertiti, and a ceiling highlighting Egyptian zodiac signs. If you want to learn more about Egyptian culture, come to the British Museum. They have a wonderful exhibit. Such a large collection of Egyptian artifacts are truly fascinating, as ancient Egypt is one of the most ancient and advanced civilizations that we know.
This is an ancient carving of a sacred eagle-headed spirit made to protect the Assyrian king. This is a red granite sarcophagus from 2400 BC, typical for the burial of important Egyptian citizens at the time. And now we have the Rosetta Stone, which helped English scholar Thomas Young and French scholar Francois Champollion to decipher hieroglyphics.
This is Greek statues carved out of marble, Plato, Aristotle, and also animals. This is a Malassian hound. These dogs were famously fierce. These are colossal statues of winged human-headed lions that were taken from the Northwest Palace. This is from Mesopotamia back in 865 BC. The British Museum is one of the finer museums in London, if not the world. It celebrated its 250th anniversary in 2003. Its goals are to be the centre of international scholarship and to disseminate knowledge in order to educate. This is achieved through the various displays at the museum. Its creation dates back to the Enlightenment, a time when consciousness finally expanded as free thinking flourished after centuries of dogmatic practices. This is truly a museum of world cultures, past and present. Of course, what you just saw of the museum is only a small sampling. Overall, the collection is divided between 10 departments. Ancient Egypt and Sudan, Ancient Near East, Coins and Medals, Ethnography, Greek and Roman Antiquities, Japanese Antiquities, Medieval and Modern Europe, Oriental Antiquities, Prehistory and Early Europe, Prints and Drawings. Adventures Abroad will be back in a minute. Now, this brings us to the oldest surviving building in London, the Tower of London. The origin of the tower as we know it today can be traced back to the Normans, a group of conquerors whose origin is from a small central state in northern France. The Normans were also Vikings who are of Scandinavian descent, making them exceptional at conquering foreign lands. A central figure in these Norman conquests is William the Conqueror, who began this fortress with the White Tower.
There is the White Tower in front of you, the largest of the 20 towers, which started work in the year 1078. It was the fortress, the palace. This is where kings and queens lived for 500 years. Their homes was the top floor. Royal apartments were there.
This is what the tower looked like in 1241, when it was a little more developed thanks to Henry III's enlargement and a digging of a new moat. This is an aerial shot of how the tower currently looks. The moat provided by the River Thames made the tower extremely difficult for foreign invasion. As the name Bloody Tower may hint, these grounds are famous for the stories of horrible torture and executions that have taken place here. The man about to speak of such terrible non-fiction is a beefeater, or current-day keeper of the tower.
Have you heard of Guy Fawkes? The gunpowder plot, yes? Within the basement of Parliament, floor to ceiling, were 48 barrels of gunpowder.
Guy Fawkes could not bring himself to light the fuse to overthrow James I of England, who was also James VI of Scotland. There was many people involved or had knowledge of the plot, and somebody squealed on Fawkes.
And Guy was arrested and brought here. He would not give any names, so straight to the basement, and they attached him to a torture instrument that is called the rack. Have you heard of it? 3 days in the rack, having his body stretched, and in these 3 days, his arms were ripped from his sockets, hips and knees ripped apart at the joints. He was a broken man.
Under such horrendous torture, Fawkes finally admitted his involvement in the assassination attempt, leading to his execution.
Within Parliament is a place called Old Palace Yards. They took him there. When he climbed that day, those one-way steps, the executioner with a mask was waiting. He took Guy Fawkes and tied his hands behind his back, with a noose around his neck. And by his neck, he was hoisted into the air and held by the rope, till just before the final breath, and he died down the ground, off came the noose, which meant he could start to breathe again. The relief as he sucked in life-giving air, the heaving chest. And while he's doing that, he was disemboweled with a knife. A gushing of blood! And he took his hand, executioner, and he plunged it into the quivering entrails. And he took all the heart, and he ripped it from the body. And imagine, in his hand, it was still beating, throbbing, pumping. Heart. He was quartered across and sent in 4 directions. The same fate was suffered by Sir William Wallace, was it not? You can see where he met his end. Not far from me is a place called Smithfield Market. Go there and you can buy fresh meat.
In previous centuries, it was common for most of the town to witness the execution of a criminal by beheading. Not only were there executions, there was also countless prisoners held in dungeons.
Dark, damp, evil, smelly place. Fire flickering on the walls. Rattling chains, where you were helplessly locked, day and night avoiding in the straw scuffling noises. Rats. It's where we had the torture chambers and dungeons, within that basement. A word of warning, gentlemen. Down there today, it is very much still a place of torture. It's a gift shop. You've been warned.
If I lie here all this night, I think I shall not be alive tomorrow. I have no light all day to see my hands perfectly. For God's sake, rid me of this dungeon, for I lie sore pained with a stone. Amongst newts and spiders, I do all things in the place that I lie in.
but the power of the human spirit is amazing. Some prisoners actually use their time to carve beautiful emblems on the wall. At the Tower of London there is also a great display of different weapons available in olden times. It's hard to believe that people could move in the heat of battle with all that heavy gear on. You'll also find
The original armour of Henry VIII.
the most famous suit of armour at the Tower. Henry VIII is famous for leading the Church of England in its division from the Roman Catholic Church because the Pope would not allow him to divorce his wife. So the Church of England was formed by King Henry VIII.
That's the private execution site where Mary chained up. Anybody could die outside. Indeed, it was an honour and a privilege to die on that spot. And that's where Henry VIII's wives lost their lives. Anne Boleyn, Catherine Howard.
King Henry VIII is the central figure of the Tower of London. He expanded the arsenal of the tower. He was a connoisseur of armour and he set up workshops. The tower even has more recent weapons exhibited, such as guns. It is interesting to note that the popular image of the Tower of London as this gruesome bloody tower where countless souls have been mercilessly executed is actually a warped stereotype of what the real history of the tower bestows. You see, there's only been 7 public executions in the tower's history. However, from the horrible stories one may hear, one could assume that public executions were as commonplace as public marketplaces. Nonetheless, besides the tortures and executions, the tower is also famous for its storage of the prestigious, priceless crown jewels. The crown jewels are arguably the largest and most valuable collection of jewels in the world. The collection includes coronation regalia, crown used for coronation of Queen Victoria in 1838. Besides being responsible for providing residence for the monarchy, the Tower of London also was a royal mint producing coinage for the surrounding kingdom. Sir Isaac Newton worked for this mint as he was the warden of the tower in 1696 and master of the tower in 1699. During the last 200 years, the tower has made the transformation from a working fortress to a tourist attraction.
You know, Ingrid, that Tower of London was a really interesting place, really quite a treasure.
Well, you know, it's a marvellous place. We're very lucky to have it because during the Second World War, a bomb actually landed, but fortunately for the Tower of London, it landed in a moat, and so the building itself did not get damaged.
We are lucky. Tell me about it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, you know, it's so wonderful, you know, to have an opportunity to travel abroad. So let's go outside of London, perhaps to the Salisbury Plains.
Okay, here it is, Salisbury Cathedral.
Here is what the cathedral looks like from the outside. Construction began all the way back in 1220 AD when architect Elias de Durham decided to build a state-of-the-art Gothic-style cathedral to replace an old Norman one. It only took 38 years to build. I say only because many other similar cathedrals took many generations and they ended up having a mixture of architectural styles that are not just purely Gothic like this one. The huge tower that you see in front of you was 404 feet. It's amazing that the world's largest medieval structure is still standing after all this time. Later, a chapter house was added to house the famous Magna Carta, a document that gave every citizen certain rights and was the forerunner of the US Constitution. Various holy figures in the church are buried here. Here we have Windsor Castle. Windsor Castle is the oldest and largest occupied castle in the world. Over the span of almost a millennium, it has been inhabited and rearranged by countless monarchs. During times of political unrest, the castle was strengthened against a possible rebellion, while at more peaceful times it was built like a place of luxury for the monarchy. The site was chosen by William the Conqueror, who saw its high location as a good site to protect the capital from foreign invasion. it continues to be actively involved in the monarchy, and Queen Elizabeth II herself lives here and takes part in her formal duties. This brings us to the last portion of the show that discusses a location that is very mysterious and even mystical: Stonehenge. Stonehenge wasn't built all at once. The original stones were placed here in 3000 BC. There was a lot of digging that took place to create a circular ditch. Dirt was piled up to form a mound. It's theorized that the 56 holes dug had to do with the moon. 28 days of the rising moon plus 28 days of the descending moon equals 56. Anyhow, these original stones are blue stones weighing in at 4 tons each. What is more daunting is that the closest place where these types of rocks can be found is in the west of Wales, 240 miles away. How did such ancient civilizations transport such heavy rocks such great distances, and why? They would have had to bring them across water and would have needed large sturdy rafts to transport them. Inside the 2 horseshoe-shaped array of huge stones there is an altar stone, which got the name because it is believed that religious ceremonies took place here, where animals and even humans were sacrificed. These stones truly are mysterious, and even though there are explanations of how ancient civilizations were able to construct such an elaborate array of heavy stones, there are also less mainstream theories that believe that this would have been too difficult for humankind, that believe the only explanation is some kind of alien civilization that we do not know about, even from outer space.
Wow, talk about close encounters of the third kind.
Well, Stonehenge is like that, and that's because no one else has thought of any reason how they got there.
That's pretty strange. Well, thank you very much for viewers watching Adventures Abroad, and thank you very much, Ingrid Hoffmeister.
You're welcome.
For being on the show. Thank you, Delmar TV. And there you have it, Adventures Abroad.